How awesome was that?
Ultraman! Stop showboating and do your job!
I am Joe Deckelmeyer with Screen Rant. We are at San Diego Comic-Con 2024. Shannon, we're going to talk some Ultraman Rising. I'm a huge fan because I'm a big fan of Tokusatsu. So seeing this in animation form was the cherry on top for me. First of all, can you talk about the development process and telling a new story inspired by the Ultraman IP?
Well, it started as a film that was inspired. It wasn't Ultraman. We didn't have the rights. And so it was called Made in Japan, and the hero was Gamma Man. I just picked another letter from the Greek alphabet to use there. So it was my inspiration, having been introduced to Ultraman as a kid when I was about 6 or 7, and it was on TV, and I found it, and it blew me away. And it always stuck with me. And then moving to LA and being reintroduced to it through Ultraman Tiga in the 90s. And then wanting to tell this story that was like, how can I get more people into Ultraman that may not know anything about it? Let's tell a parent-child story.
Right.
So that's kind of the genesis of it. And then 23 years of stubbornness, and we finally got to make the movie.
Wow, so this is like a real dream come true for you, like from when you were a little kid to watching it come to fruition.
Yeah, and it's been, at the moment when it was suggested that we might actually be able to work with Tsuburaya and make an Ultraman film, I was always more excited. There wasn't ever any, because Tsuburaya is such an amazing group of folks to work with. It never felt like pressure. It was more, I remember the first time that I went to meet with them, and when we sat down at the conference room table with Tsukagoshi-san and Onda-san and Kei-san, all the folks that worked there at Tsuburaya, they had these little bamboo what am I forgetting? Coasters. They had little coasters, and they had the classic silhouettes of the kaiju and the Seijin on it. And they had Kanegon, and I was freaking out over it. And they're like, well, if you want it, take it. And like from that moment on, like those little experiences are things that are precious to me about the process.
That's awesome. These little Easter eggs just kind of led up to this moment. Now, I love from the beginning the kaiju aren't good or bad. Why was it so important to establish this, and how did you want that to be reflected in both Emmy and Gigatron?
So I wanted there to be, we'd seen it played out how you just, they're attacking the city, we'll battle them or we'll kill them. But I try to look at them as, well, if they were just native creatures who were here and we'd encroached on their environment, they're attacking because we've kind of entered their space. And Ken's mom founded the KDF, and so they've been trying to find the balance between humanity and the kaiju, and that felt like a good source of inspiration because Ken would look at it as, well, you cared more about them than you did me, and they destroyed the city, and what did I ever do?
Right.
Except look up to you. So Ken has to come to understand that, and the only way he can is by raising a child of his own. And that child just happens to be another kaiju. But even when there's the scene, the first big Gigantron battle scene, when she's looking for her egg, we wanted to just tip the hat a little bit to the audience and say, this may not be what you think it is, or this may not be what you're expecting.
Now, at the heart of this story, it's a fatherhood. Fatherhood is at the heart of this story in Ultraman Rising. How does raising Emmy help Ken reconnect with his own family?
Well, he sees the things that all children see when they have to raise kids. We're passing judgment on our parents, and we're thinking, well, they're the ones who tell us what to do. They're the ones who make all the rules. Why can't you be here at this event? Why can't you? And Ken, now in the role of Ultraman and also being this huge baseball personality, he's got to find his way. But now he's got a kid in the mix, and now he understands the weight of not just Ultraman and his father's responsibilities as Ultraman, but the weight and responsibility of being a parent. So he has to see it firsthand, and he never had to deal with that before.
Right.
And he's so stubborn, he doesn't call his dad in. We tried different versions where he brought his dad in a little bit earlier, and it just never landed for me because I thought, Ken's that stubborn. His dad, if he calls to his dad, it means he needs him, and he doesn't want his dad to think he needs him.
Now,
So
in the Ultraman Tokusatsu, there's different versions of Ultraman. How did you guys settle on this version?
to me, it was the moment that it became an actual Ultraman movie. I knew that the design needed to be a riff on the classic red and silver suit, because even if people didn't know Ultraman or hadn't really seen the show, they may have seen that image.
Right.
So, and and I try to make a point too. I'm like, he's not literally the old Man-Nissan, character. It's a version of that in our world. We got a little bit more aggressive shapes, but it really was to just get that. And to me, it's one of the greatest superhero costume designs of all time.
Yeah, I vaguely remember like that imagery when I was younger with something called Superhero Samurai Squad. Yeah. So that was my first kind of introduction to that type of world. But Dr. Onda shows just how dangerous hatred born out of grief and fear can be. How did you want to show that empathy in that main antagonist, but you're still rooting against him?
Yeah, I wanted, in the same way with Gigantron, in that in the first battle that we had with Naranga, I wanted it to be fun. And it's Mark Hames who wrote the script with me, and I talked about that a lot. He said, the first battle should be fun, with no context, no guilt. And then when you see the next battle with Gigantron, I wanted people to kind of feel badly that they may have rooted for Ultraman to win against Naranga because they didn't understand the situation. And I wanted them to feel the same way with the villain. I don't care for villains who are like, I want to take over the world.
Sure.
I can't connect with them in some way. What I wanted it to be was the villain has the exact same goals as the hero, to figure out how to solve the kaiju problem. So he was part of the original science team. He lost his family the same night, actually, as this is a little behind the scenes stuff. The night in the second scene in the film where we see Ken as a little boy in the apartment, Dr. Onda's apartment's in the same building. Whoa. So his family actually died that night. And that was when the change happened. And then he sought to take over the KDF. And I wanted people they don't have to agree with what he's doing, but at least to understand why he's doing it.
Yeah, proper motivation so you understand what's going on. Talk to me about the idea of balance and why you needed to be the guiding post for Ken instead of the fighting for good and evil.
To me, balance is a lot more relatable task. Sure. If you talk about good and evil with just average person on the street, they're going to say, like, no, I don't. I deplore evil and I support good. When you talk about balance, especially with a parent, is how do I balance my job with my family, with my friends? That's something I think everybody can connect with. And I think it's core to Ultraman lore and mythology. That's the purpose. That's what he's trying to find. And I felt like taking those things that were already pillars inside of the Ultraman mythos and making it this relatable thing of what's it like to find balance as a parent, that would be something that people could connect with and not really have to know much about Ultraman. Now,
were there any storylines that you wanted to include in this that you maybe didn't get to for timing purposes or pacing purposes that you'd like to explore in the future?
We have that little tease at the end, and I did want to get into a little bit more of the history of the KDF, which you can't. You get into the expositional stuff. I never wanted this to be an origin story. From the beginning, I said, guys, this is not going to be an origin story. This is going to be more about just throwing you into the middle of it as you would if you were just flipping through the channels and found the show. But I definitely, because Ken's, as I said, Ken's mom founded the KDF. I would love to explore that more. We didn't have time for it, but that's why I teed it up a little bit in the next for a possible next film if we could do that. I want to get deeper into maybe introducing some of the other Ultras. I think would be pretty incredible. We have that tease of Nebula M78 at the end, which I certainly want to get into. And then another big one, of course, are the Seijin.
Sure. The
Seijin, you have to include those in any future version of this story.
Well, hopefully we're going to get that sequel coming up very soon. I'm hoping, got my fingers crossed for it.
Go talk to Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix, if you're listening, well, let's get an Ultraman sequel. Come on now. Thank you so much for stopping by. Enjoy the rest of your convention. It was a pleasure speaking with you, Shannon.
Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
I didn't even want this gig. And now everybody's coming at me. Shimura, the KDF, random grandmas.